Good evening and welcome to News Review. Across the continent last Sunday, the European elections returned an unprecedented number of MEPs hostile or sceptical about the European Union. The Liberal Democrats, however, failed to win a seat despite a majority of Gibraltar voters having chosen the party. It spelled the end of a 20-year career as MEP for Sir Graham Watson, who will not return to the European Parliament. Our reporter, Jonathan Scott, who was in Poole covering the results, brings us this report.
Gibraltar had gone to the polls on Thursday, as had England, but we had to wait until Sunday for the results, as 4 days of elections across 28 countries came to a climax. The 6 MEPs who will represent Gibraltar and the southwest of England for the next 5 years were confirmed at the Civic Centre in Poole in Dorset. UKIP topped the polls for the region with 32.3% of the vote.
These are actually European elections, and we were the only party that basically fought an election campaign about the European question and about the issues which affect people from Europe. And I think that people were having some second thoughts about 10 days ago, but then they thought about it and they've given us a very fundamental result.
A lot of our vote is from people who haven't voted at all, ever, or who haven't voted in the past 20 or 30 years. So we are appealing to people who haven't had anybody representing them in the recent past.
The Conservatives' Ashley Fox and Julie Girling were re-elected with 28.9% of the vote.
On behalf of Julie Girling and myself, we're delighted to have been returned to the European Parliament. We're naturally disappointed we didn't retain our 3 seats, but I think the people of the South West have made clear that they want our relationship with the European Union to change.
Pretty good night for us. We're obviously in government, so we don't expect to do as well as last time. Everyone said it was going to be a UKIP earthquake. Well, it's only a little slight tremor, really. We're only 60,000 votes behind them. So, yeah, we held them to 2 seats, which I'm delighted.
The 5th and 6th successful candidates were Labour and Green rosettes, respectively.
It was the Labour government that said, right, there is no decision about Gibraltar without the Gibraltarian involvement, and we absolutely wholeheartedly stick by that. And working forward, we have got to find a solution to issues like the border problem right now, and I see that as being a big part of my responsibility over the coming 5 years.
I don't know Gibraltar politics very well, and I noticed that Gibraltar doesn't know me very well because only 87 people voted for me, but I promise I won't hold that against you. I don't fly, but I shall have to find a way of getting to Gibraltar by train before very long.
In Gibraltar, the Liberal Democrats had topped the polls.
Liberal Party, 4,822.
But despite placing first locally, the Lib Dems failed to win a seat, bringing to an end Sir Graham Watson's 20-year career as an MEP. The Chief Minister said he'd be contacting the new MEPs to map out a way forward. Fabian Picardo reflected on the low local turnout of 32.9%.
These elections really matter. If you're disappointed with the European Commission and the way it behaved with Gibraltar in relation to the frontier, the answer is not to stay away. The answer is to go out and vote in European parliamentary elections, because the people that you vote for are the people you send to Brussels, are the people who check the European Commission and whip it into shape if it's not doing what it needs to do for Gibraltar.
Meanwhile, the GSD's Damon Bossino also highlighted the importance of addressing the low turnout, which was below the overall UK average of 34.2%.
There is a sense of disengagement between the European Union as such and voters, and that's something I think we as a political class need to identify and sort out as fast as possible, to be honest.
Across the United Kingdom, UKIP topped the polls with 27.5% of the vote, securing 24 MEPs. It's the first time in 100 years that a national UK election has not been won by the Conservatives or Labour. The British result was reflected across Europe, where anti-EU parties made sweeping electoral gains. After 5 years of financial crisis, recession and austerity, the election results expose a divided Europe. David Cameron has told other EU leaders that it cannot be business as usual. The Prime Minister is in Brussels tonight for an informal dinner with other heads of government, including Germany's Angela Merkel, to discuss a way forward for the European project. Mr. Cameron will argue for reform. He believes member states should have more power and the European Union less.
The first civil partnership ceremony took place at the Civil Registration Office last week. Nadine and Alicia Muscat, a same-sex couple who fought a government housing policy in court in 2009, became the first couple to benefit from the new law passed in Parliament in March. There were nerves and tears from Alicia and Nadine Muscat. This was a day they had waited a long time for, and finally it was here. Gibraltar today saw its first civil partnership ceremony following the new law being passed in Parliament in March. As soon as that happened, Nadine and Alicia wanted to make their relationship official. There were family and friends, and the Chief Minister, Fabian Picardo, along with the Minister for Equality, Samantha Sacramento, who had been invited to the ceremony, also attending.
Well, it's a huge privilege because they simply could have got on without us, but they've recognised that we had something to do with making today happen, and they brought us all together. They brought the GGR together, they brought the government together, they brought their families and friends together. All of us have been made a part of this extremely important day in their lives, an extremely significant day in the history of Gibraltar.
Well, it's now possible in Gibraltar, and that's the most important thing. The important thing is that now we have been able to make this a reality. People in same-sex relationships now have the option to have their relationship recognised in law, and that is the most important thing.
It was a packed room at the registry office as both Alicia and Nadine read out their declarations before the registrar and then their vows to one another. An already nerve-wracking and emotional day, perhaps heightened by the presence of the media and very special guests. And soon it was made official.
And it is therefore my duty and my honour to pronounce you civil partners, and I invite you to kiss them.
So, did Alicia and Nadine ever think this day would come?
Not really. Not really. I was giving up, yeah.
But we are very happy after 26 years waiting here for this. We are quite happy.
How were you feeling when you were in the registry office then?
Shaking, very nervous, very hot. It's very hot in there. Very embarrassed, really.
But we
Too
are...
many people, yeah. But very excited, happy that it's finally come true, and proud.
The government marked the occasion by flying the rainbow flag from number 6 Convent Place. This flag was designed by the Equality Rights Group and represents diversity. They were also present.
Absolutely overjoyed. Today is all about those two women and the happiness that today brings to them, and this is what the whole of the last 14 years and the next 14 years is about. About bringing happiness to ordinary people. That's what it's all about. Forget the law, forget the politics, it's about making people happy.
Soon after, it was time for photos and congratulatory embraces by family and friends. Nadine and Alicia now having their relationship formally registered. The Chief Minister, Fabian Picardo, this week wrote to the European Commission outlining the measures his government is taking to comply with the Commission's border recommendations and urging it to press Spain to do likewise. Mr. Picardo said Gibraltar is doing everything it can to meet the Commission's expectations, but that Madrid is not keeping its side of the bargain.
The Chief Minister's letter has been prompted by the expiry of the 6-month period set by the Commission to review the operation of the Gibraltar-La Linea frontier. Mr. Picardo notes that a number of infrastructural improvements are already in place in response to the Commission's recommendation that exit checks be conducted in an effort to combat tobacco smuggling. These include control points for each of the vehicle lanes into Spain and a dedicated covered vehicle search facility. In addition, 18 closed-circuit television cameras and 4 automatic number plate recognition devices have been installed. Mr. Picardo highlights other measures the government has taken, like the increase in tobacco duty, the reduction in the hours during which tobacco can be sold, and the creation of a new offence of concealing tobacco in a motor vehicle. In sharp contrast, however, he says there's an obvious lack of progress on the Spanish side, and that the checks conducted by the Spanish authorities continue to be disproportionate and unjustified. He points out that Spain could improve frontier flow immediately, without the need for any infrastructural works. The Chief Minister says the reality is that Spain appears to have ignored the Commission's recommendations, and he's urged the Commission to put an end to the inhumane treatment that EU and other nationals are subjected to at the frontier.
The Minister for Europe, David Lidington, this week gave Gibraltar a pat on the back and Spain a rap on the knuckles over their contrasting attitudes to the European Commission's frontier recommendations. Mr. Lidington said he was impressed by the significant steps taken by Gibraltar to tackle tobacco smuggling. The minister added that smuggling does not justify the disproportionate regime of border checks taking up to 3 hours, or explain the delays for people seeking to enter Gibraltar. Meanwhile, the Chief Minister confirmed the government was in the process of limiting to 200 the amount of cigarettes a person can be in possession of in the area of the border. Fabian Picardo said the process will include a requirement on retailers to display a notice to the effect. The inaugural trade mission held by the Gibraltar American Chamber of Commerce brought over 20 foreign companies for a series of meetings on the Rock this week. The trade mission, which has been accompanied by senior U.S. political figures, was launched aboard the Sunborn Floating Hotel this week.
Gibraltar is a small place with a giant future. That was the message given today by former U.S. Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar, who joined Chief Minister Fabian Picardo and AmCham President James Lasry in launching the trade mission.
We know that AmCham really was formed because it understands that there are opportunities for North American companies and companies from around the world to expand their business opportunities for goods and services here in Gibraltar. We know that it's a stepping stone to the over 500 million people in the European Union. When you think about that, it's almost twice the population of the United States of America. But it doesn't stop there. It also includes the opportunities in North Africa and this part of the world, a stepping stone that can get you to greater economic opportunity.
Mr. Salazar highlighted the geographical, political, legal and cultural benefits of increased commercial links between the US and Gibraltar, praising the local business infrastructure and legal system in particular, and singling out e-commerce and energy conservation as key areas with potential for expansion and innovation.
Well, the whole point of the trade mission is that there should be interaction between the companies that visit from outside and those companies that are established in Gibraltar that have decided to sign up to the mission. So you've got 27 companies from Gibraltar, 22 companies from the US. There's 158 meetings already set up between them, trying to do business, trying to agree a way forward between themselves, sometimes in the same sectors, sometimes in different sectors. But that of course, is what is designed to stimulate the commercial relationship between those that are here.
AmCham, or the Gibraltar American Chamber of Commerce, was inaugurated earlier this year with the aim of fostering commercial and cultural relations between the ROC and the US. This first trade mission hopes to do just that, by putting American companies in touch with the local ones, with a particular focus on new technologies, infrastructure and financial services.
The Americans have got great products that they want to sell around the world. That's their entrepreneurial spirit. Gibraltar's a good place for them to showcase to the rest of Europe, this market of 500 million people, what it is that they can do. That's what NYNEX did here very successfully, and left behind the legacy of the updated phone network that we didn't have then and we have now, which is this fabulous fiber network, which sowed the seeds for what was to come later, which is a successful finance center. You can't have a successful finance center in insurance or any of the other areas if you can't pick up the phone and call people, and a successful remote gaming business model that is the envy of the world.
With the American lobbying firm Holland & Knight having recently been appointed to promote Gibraltar's interests in Washington, the Chief Minister has emphasized the importance of increasing Gibraltar's international outreach at both a political and a commercial level. Mr. Picardo said this week's inaugural trade mission is only the tip of the iceberg, with a reciprocal mission to the States also due to take place later this year.
And we'll be back with more of this week's news after the break.